Well, hello, everyone, and thank you so much for taking the time to join us today for our fabulous event. My name is Tara Empson, and I'm the very fortunate daughter of Neil and Maria Empson. Started and founded our company 50 years ago, well, actually over 50 years ago. And we actually last year we celebrated 50 years. Recently, we've had the honor and pleasure, along with some of our most esteemed winery, to be able to have a wonderful portfolio tasting in 3 key cities in the United States. And this is to say thank you for the people for those of you who were able to attend, but also thank you to you and our producers for allowing us to be here and do this. So thank you, thank you, thank you. So going into our awesome event today, we are introducing the wonderful Piteradolce winery. We are in Etna, on the northern slopes of Mount Etna. And with us today, we have Michele Faro, who is the owner and the artisan of such awesome wines that we'll be having. All of them have these really cool little mini samples, or little nips, breakfast of the champions for some of you today. And to present today's webinar, we have not only a dear friend of the families, but also an expert on Italian, accomplished author, Ian D'Agata. And by accomplished author, I would like to tell everyone he has actually written a book about all the many, many native Italian varieties. So you can't get more expert than that, can we, Ian?
Hopefully not. You picked the wrong guy then. No, thank you. Thank you. I'm really happy to be here. It's a pleasure.
Thank you. Well, listen, I'm going to leave the word to Ian, everyone. Thank you again for joining us, and I hope you have fun and learn a lot.
Okay. Thank you, Tara. Thank you. It's a real pleasure to be doing this with Empson, who's been one of the most important importers of Italian wines in North America and now really all over the world for the longest time. So very honored, very happy, and looking forward to this presentation. Etna, we're going to just basically introduce Etna. I'll ask Michele a few questions. He will then tell us about the history of the estate, and then we will broach the Etna terroir in more detail and discuss it through 5 really beautiful wines from Piteradolce. So I think most people listening realize that Etna today is the hottest viticultural zone and the hottest wines Italy makes. And this is true both for the whites and the reds. Etna Bianco, Etna Rosso sell like hotcakes. A lot of importers are actually looking for more than one winery. And this is really remarkable because you have to consider that as recently as 2000, nobody knew anything about Etna. Literally Nerello Mascalese, Nerello Cappuccio, Carricante, the 3 main grapes of Etna were literally unknown outside of local circles. And this is actually was a recent happening because back in the 1800s, Etna was a very famous wine producing area. There were over 50,000 hectares of vines in that area. Consider that now there's basically 2,000 hectares and under vine, maybe a little bit more than 1,300. So but the area has really known a boom. In as recently as 2010, there were 2 million bottles of Etna wines made a year. In 2020, that doubled to 4 million. In 2021, it was 4.5 million. Say that Etna comes from the ancient Greek Aetna, or Aetna in Latin, which means fire, because Etna is a volcano. It is actually Europe's tallest volcano. Generally stated to be around 3,300 meters high. But in fact, that height of the volcano has changed over the years along with the different eruptions that happens. Today, actually, the Etna is estimated to be 3,357 meters high. This is because the latest eruption in 2021 caused the southeastern part of Etna to become slightly higher than the northeastern, which was historically always the highest. And this is important because not just the height of Etna changes, but also the delimitations of the various areas of Etna. And that is why when we talk about the contrade, we can tell you that up until recently, we had 133 contrade, which are regional subunit, administrative units, sort of the crews of ETNA, 133. But now another 9 have been added, and now there are 142. And this is because the ETNA is a living entity, la montagna. It's a living entity, and it changes. So, not to bore you, but for example, in 1900, the mountain was only 3,274 meters high. In 1956, it was 3,290. In 1978, 3,345. And now it's 3,357. So the Etna is an amazing place. It's unique. And Michele is going to tell us a little bit about what he thinks is so special about its soils and its climate. And like I said, we'll talk about this later again. Michele?
Hi, everybody. Thanks, Ian. It's a pleasure to be all together. And it's mostly a pleasure to talk about Mount Etna, which is, as you said, an amazing terroir. We produce wine on the northern, Piteradolce is an estate producing wine on the northern slopes of Mount Etna at about 800 meters above sea level. So as you say, that Mount Etna is about 3,300 meters. And people say, I like to say that Mount Etna, talking about wine, is an island in the highland. It means that we are completely different compared to the rest of Sicily. Because we produce wine on a mountain in the extreme south of Italy, which is special, which is different compared to the rest of Sicily. So Mount Etna is alive because it is always changing in terms of altitude. And Mount Etna is a polyhedric terroir. We are on the northern slopes of Mount Etna. We have many different contradas. We produce wine on volcanic soil, and we produce different wines on different lava flows. It means that each lava flows generate different wines. And this is really unique. This is really unique because you can, starting from the base, which is Nerello Mascalese for red wines and the Carricante for white wines, we have we can produce different wines with different characters if the lava flows are different of different centuries. This is unbelievable unique. So altitude, volcanic soil, sandy soil, and minerality, thanks to the volcanic soil, great, nice acidity, positive acidity, thanks to the grapes that we grow. So all together, we have elegance, we have finesse, we have freshness, and it's really something special. Yeah, tell me.
No, I'm just saying, so the greatness of Etna, I think a lot of people who are listening are aware, it's really one of the greatest terroir wines in the world, very much like Burgundy and very much like Barolo. The Nerello Mascalese and the Nerello Cappuccio, even though it's not as common, are able to translate the different lava flows into the glass. So, as you said, Etna has always erupted over the centuries. There have been many very famous eruptions, such as, for example, in 1646, in 1879, in 1911, in 1981, an eruption that was very close to the town of Randazzo, which is really in the center of the northern slope of Etna, which is key for red wine production. But like I said, there was a recent eruption even in 2021. So all these eruptions, as Michele was saying, have led to flows of lava, what in Sicilian we call sciare, and these are of different age. So the soil composition is very different. In general, the best soils, clearly it's a volcanic soil, but the soils actually, the best soils have what we call allophane clays. In other words, they have a proportion of clay which allows for water retention and allows to support droughty conditions. And there's also sand. So in the viticultural zone of the Etna can be divided in three parts: the northern, the eastern, and the southern. The southern can be divided in southeastern and southwestern, but for all intents and purposes, it's southern. And in the north, there might be 78% sand, 10% loam, and 12% clay, while in the southern slope, for example, there's going to be more like 88% sand, 4% clay, and 8% clay and 4% loam. So it's a really different terroir. And the northern part is where the best red wines of Etna are made. The climate is also very different. The eastern part of Etna is very rainy, it's very windy. There's about 2,000 millimeters of water a year. Compare that to 600 to 800 on the northern part. In an unlucky year, maybe as low as 400, but much less rain. The maturation of the grapes will lag 2 to 3 weeks behind. The average temperatures are at least a degree Celsius less. So it really is a completely different habitat. So Michele, one last question before you have to tell us about your estate and when it was founded. A very high quality estate, but a relatively one, founded only in 2005. Tell us a little bit about Piteradolce.
Yeah, you know, Piteradolce was born in 2005, as you said, and because my I want to say, I like to say that my grandfather was a small wine producer on the southern part of Mount Etna, and that was the time when the wine was produced for to be consumed at home or to be sold to the friends. You know, it was a very small family business. All in a sudden, 2005, I decided myself to get back to the family roots, because I didn't want to lose this tradition. So I decided to start again producing wine. My family started again producing wine, but in this case on the northern slopes of Mount Etna, which is now called the Golden Valley. You know, the Golden Valley, the Côte d'Or of Italy, let's say, somebody say. So that was the challenge at the time. Believe me, Ian, when it was a big risk to start again there, because Mount Etna in 2005 was not the Mount Etna of today. Now it's a very worldwide reputed area. At that time it was a challenge, but luckily we took the risk, and we are happy that we did it. And the Piteradolce is a 25 hectares estate. And so we are a medium small winery, because our main focus is quality. And we like to produce our quality wines using mainly, especially for our crew, using mainly Pre-phylloxera vines. So it means vines of about 90, 100, 120 years old. And we arrived to, we own a vineyard of 140 years old, which is the one that we use to produce our Archineri Etna Bianco. I love to say that we produce a cru from our contradas. Our contrada, we can translate the word contrada with the cru to make it easier. But I like to say that inside our big cru, we selected the small clos, if we want to use French words for helping people understand. So we selected small clos inside the big cru, like Rampante, for instance, and that is where we produce Archineri Etna Rosso, Rampante, and Barbagalli, for instance. Inside this big cru, we produce Archineri Etna Rosso and Rampante Etna Rosso using two very small vineyards, which are really one closer to the other. They are separated, you see the image, you see the pictures, only by one small volcanic rocks wall. So people could say, why you don't mix the two vineyards, each one close to the other. But we don't do it because each vineyard stands on different lava flows. So we connect to what we said before, and different lava flows give us different wines. That's why as a small artisanal winery, we like to do it. We like to separate the small clos, the small vineyard, to produce different wines. That's the big challenge of Mount Etna, and that's what we love to do. So working with Prefilloxera vines, Alberello, which means a bushy shape, different wines from different small Prefilloxera clos.
Absolutely. And that's a very important point. And I'm just going to interrupt because this is something that Michele, who's too modest, can't say. But I think it's very important to make people understand the quality argument, but also the reality of Etna today, which isn't a criticism of other people, but I think it is good to highlight the differences of some estates. So we said that the Etna is a C-shaped viticultural area with a northern and eastern and a southern area. Historically, the best place for white wine production is the eastern slope. That is where you can make not just the Etna Bianco, but you can make actually the Etna Bianco Superiore wine. The northern part has always been historically the best for the Etna Rosso, the red Etna, and the southern part is good for just about everything. But what I'm trying to say is that historically, the northern part of Etna really only had red grapes. Now, over the last 10 years, there has been a lot of Carricante planted there, and you understand why that is, because it's much more easy for estates to own vineyards of both red grapes and white grapes with which to make the Etna Bianco and Etna Rosso. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. It makes it a lot easier than having to drive all the way to the eastern part of the slope, maybe to the town of Milo, to pick up your white grapes. And so a lot of estates are now making the Etna Bianco from the northern slope of Etna because that's where they planted their Carricante. And like I say, that's perfectly acceptable and it's perfectly fine. And the wines are in fact beautiful. However, historically, the best part of Etna for white wines is the eastern part. And what I want to point out, because like I say, Michele is probably too modest to say this, is that their Etna Bianco comes from the eastern part. It comes from the Caselle Contrada, which is really the Grand Cru, recognized universal. It's the Chevalier Montrachet, not to say Montrachet, of the Etna as far as Carricante is concerned. So what they do at Pietradolce, they make their Etna Bianco from the eastern slope rather than take the easy way out and plant Carricante on the northern slope, which would be perfectly acceptable, but they don't do that. So when we talk about quality and we talk about terroir, this is a very important thing. I'm sorry, Michele, I interrupted. Tell us a little bit about your cultivation, your vineyards, and your winery, which is beautiful. A lot of artwork too.
Yeah, thanks, Ian. Yeah, I was listening to what you say, which is totally correct. You know, we decided since since the beginning, we decided to select unbelievable vineyards for Prefilloxera vineyards for producing our wines, because we have no, I like to say as a joke, we have no middle way if we have to produce our cru. Or great, unbelievable Prefilloxera vineyards or nothing. That's my point of view, because Mount Etna is offering us such an unbelievable possibility with Prefilloxera vineyards that now it's not very easy to find, honestly, but 10 years ago, 15 years ago was easier, and luckily we found unbelievable Prefilloxera vineyard, like the one in Milo on the eastern part of Mount Etna, you know, where we decided to produce our Etna, our Archineri Etna Bianco, which is our cru, using a vineyard of about 140 years old, which is not only a vineyard, it's a monument. It's a monument that we have to respect. It's a monument that we have to protect. And from using this alive monument, we produce our cru Archineri Etna Bianco in that amazing contrada, which is a Caselle, which is the most reputed contrada on eastern slopes of Mount Etna in the village of Milo. MILO. So that's the challenge, to choose the best areas for each wine and to produce great wine using using vineyards in a very important group. On the northern slopes of Mount Etna, where the winery is located, we produce the rest of our wine. Archineria Etna Bianco and the Milo is the only wine that we produce out of the northern slopes of the northern part of Mount Etna. All the other wines, Barbagalli, Rampanti, Archineria Etna Rosso, and Feudo di Mezzo, Santo Spirito, they are produced on the northern slope, which is the Côte d'Or of Sicily, let's say. And we are located in the village, just out of the village of Solicchiata, or between Solicchiata and Passo Pisciaro, which is really the most reputed area for producing Etna Rosso. And luckily, years ago, we found these small Prephyloxera vineyards, which are continuing giving us amazing wines. That's and the last we decided to produce, because luckily we had a small vineyards in Feudo di Mezzo, is Feudo di Mezzo. We released Feudo di Mezzo 2019, which is in a small quantity. It's only 1,500 bottles. All our crew, all our wine produced from these small Prephyloxera vineyards are produced in very small quantities. We don't care about huge quantities, Ian. We just care of high quality. So let's say Barbagalli is a couple of thousand bottles, Archineria Etna Rosso 5,000 bottles, Rampante 4,000, Feudo di Mezzo 1,500. So you can imagine that this is something. Let me say that a small artisanal winery can do. It's a deep research of terroir. It's a research of different small terroir in the area on the northern side of Mount Etna. It's let me say, a huge passion for this terroir. If you have passion for, if we, you know, I postpone business to passion and for love, to passion to love for this terroir. Etna, we are really extreme when we say this one. We love Mount Etna. We have a deep passion for this terroir, so we want to protect this terroir. Let's say that's why I always say everybody is welcome on Mount Etna, because you know it's very popular now. So many people are arriving in Mount Etna. It's almost 20 years we are here. So I like to say to people coming in the last few years to Mount Etna, come, everybody is welcome, but try to protect this amazing terroir. Try to protect what we did in the past, because we have a great possibility. Mount Etna is becoming so popular all around the world, but we have to protect this image. We have to protect this terroir.
I think that we're going to start tasting the wines and talk about the Cruz or the Contrade in more detail in a second. Do you want to just say something about your winery? It's built in such a way so it really doesn't stick out. It's well hidden from view. It's very eco-friendly. And also, you can mention basically your labels, which are also closely linked to the Etna and the triangle symbol of your winery.
Yeah, you know, when I like to talk with passion about Mount Etna, sometimes I forget some specific things. Yeah, our winery was built. We started building our winery 6 years ago. It was finished 2 years ago. It's an eco-friendly winery, let's say, because we built our winery using big volcanic stones on the walls and the green landscaping on the rooftop. It means that we have a special microclimate inside, giving us the possibility to use less and less and less electric energy. So it's and we use the water. We use the water by the rain. We reuse the water by the rain. So we like, and it's a winery that it's really integrated in the terroir. So we try to do something really eco-friendly. our labels, the labels of our crew, of our single vineyard wines have the what I like to call the volcano human. You know, the Sicilian people, the local people, they call the volcano La Montagna. La Montagna is a female word, means the mountain. So we wanted to express this word as an energetic Sicilian human on the label. You know, smoke on the hair and lava flows the clothes. That's what we wanted to say. The triangle, as you say, it's the mountain with the shade, with this shade, you know, with their shade. So it's symbol that represent metaphorically our area, our terroir, because we are extremely connected with our terroir, and we wanted to express this also on our iconographic part.
Great, so that's fantastic. We're gonna maybe move to talk about the wines, and I know people have the kits so they can taste them. So we can start talking about them, and you can tell us a little bit more about the cruise. First of all, the first four wines are from the 2019 vintage, which is a great, fantastic vintage for ETNA. One of the best vintages of all time for the white wines, maybe the best all-time vintage for white wines, and certainly a fantastic vintage for red wines. A very cold winter, a slightly rainy spring with about even 400 millimeters of water, which is immense for the northern part of ETNA, but then very dry, very windy, beautiful June, July, August, September, October. Really a vintage of classic wines. In some ways, I think better to my palate than even 14 or 11, which are maybe too extreme even. 19 are very elegant wines, very refined wines. And I think some of the most beautiful Etna Rosso wines ever made. And I repeat, it's maybe the best all-time vintage for Etna Bianco. So 19 is just a great vintage. So the first one we're going to drink is the Archineri, which I have here. Archineri, very typical Etna Rosso. This is the Nerello Mascalese grape, maybe with a little Nerello Cappuccio, because those are all field blends, old vintages, old vines. You know, the Nerello, first of all, the wine, if for people who have the kit, not dark. The Etna Rosso wines are never going to be black, like you know, a Merlot wine. They're never going to be inky. They are always beautiful red in color, because that is what the Nerello Mascalese grape can give. Maybe in the southern slope of Etna, the wines are a little darker. There's a bit more loam there. But no, in general, this is the color, the beautiful color of an Etna Rosso wine. Floral and herbal. These are not usually fruit bombs. Some Contrade are definitely fruitier than others, and you will see that. You will see that when we taste through the wine. But the Archineri, I think, is a benchmark Etna Rosso. Michele, tell us a little bit about Archineri.
Yeah. As you say, Archineri is a benchmark. Is the most traditional wine. You know, imagine that Archineri is the first wine that we produced, because we started producing with micro-vinification wine in 2005, but we released the first vintage in 2007, and it was Archineri Etna Rosso 2007, because we tried to do our test in 2005 and 6, and finally we released 3,600 bottles of Archineri Etna Rosso in 2009, but it was Archineri Etna Rosso 2007. And so Archineri, it's a benchmark of Pietradolce. As you can say in the picture that you have, it's Archineri Etna Rosso. It is really close to Rampante, where we produce a Rampante Etna Rosso, and we given the name of the Contrada to this second wine. They are separated just from a small volcanic stones wall, but two different lava flows, as we said, and two different lava flows give two different wines. So it's a fruity, but it's all about, it's on the elegance, you know. It's a really nice lady, you know, on your palate. Velvet, fruity, elegance, velvet. That's what I can feel in this wine. It's really a big classic. Yeah, let's say, Ian.
Yep. It's also, what contrada would the grapes for Archineri come from?
No, it's the same rampante. It's the same rampante, but we are continuing using the first name that we given to this wine, because we love this name because it was our first wine, our first name. Archineri means black arch. In the old style Sicilian villas, you have these big doors with the big black volcanic stones arch. So it's even this name is representing the tradition of Mount Etna, of these old villas. So that's why we love this name. So we keep continuing using this name, but this wine is made in the same Contrada Rampante.
Yeah, this is the Archineri. Oh no, I can't see it. This is the Archineri. I don't know if you can see it, but a lot of you have of course, the label at home. So the Archineri is sort of the introduction to the Pietradolce style. Now, one of the things that is important about Pietradolce is that they are lucky in that they own vineyards in 3 of the very best crus of or contrade of Etna. Now, like we said, there's now 142 contrade. Some really aren't very well known, like Stella, for example. Some really aren't very well known. But there are some that are remarkably important, and I think that it's easy to acknowledge that Pietradolce has vineyards in 3 of what are the 10 best crus of Etna, and they are Rampante, Feudo di Mezzo, and Santo Spirito. And we're going to drink now the second wine, which is a Feudo di Mezzo. And Feudo di Mezzo is a really great example of the difference of terroir, because you will notice right away how different it is from the Archineri, and even more so how different it is from Santo Spirito. So Feudo di Mezzo is the most recent acquisition of Pietradolce. This is, in fact, the first vintage they've ever made of the Feudo di Mezzo. The important thing about Feudo di Mezzo to know is that it gives one of the fleshier and rounder Etna Rosso wines. It is always a more approachable wine, but rich and full-bodied, and it is a wine that everybody loves. It gives a recognizably, it's a recognizable cru. When you blind taste, if you have a little bit of experience, you can always pick out Feudo di Mezzo, because it is the one that has more flesh and fruit and rounder in the mouth, but deep at the same time. It really is a great, great cru. Everybody loves its wines. I have found over the years that when I ask people I'm tasting with, what was your favorite wine tonight? 50% of the time, Feudo di Mezzo ends up winning, because it's just a wine that people love. You will notice that when you drink it, it's a little bit darker, first of all, than the Archineri, and you will see it is certainly much darker than the Santo Spirito, but it's still a very normal color for Nerello Mascalese and Nerello Cappuccio. It's a beautiful dark red, but it is red. It's not even ruby. And you will notice that this wine, when you drink it, has aromas of red cherry and pomegranate and fruit, really ripe fruit, and in the mouth, much fleshier and less herbal than the Archineri. Michele, tell us a little bit about this beautiful wine, because it's your recent baby.
Yeah, it's our recent baby. Honestly, we own this hectare in Feudo di Mezzo Contrada since a few years, but finally we decided to separate it and to produce a cru, because it's a prephyloxera cru again. And the first idea was to release a Feudo di Mezzo in 2018, but 2018 was not the vintage I liked to release a new cru. So I decided to postpone it and to release it in 2019. As you say, as you totally correctly said, Feudo di Mezzo is a balance between elegance and richness. If we wanna create a scale of our wine, there's Archineri Etna Rosso, which is a benchmark, which is a classic. There is a Rampante, which is powerful. There's a Santo Spirito, which is which is a finesse, which is elegance. Feudo di Mezzo is it's a meeting between richness and between elegance. It's a different area compared to the other ones because we are at about 650 meters above sea level. Again, volcanic soil, but it's more compared to Santo Spirito, for instance. It's a crew more close. Santo Spirito is a kind of mountain. It's high. It's at about 800 meters above sea level. So it's a different, you know, different area, different soil. But again, let me show everybody again volcanic soil. You know, this is a volcanic rock, which is representative of all our terroir, all our vineyards. You know, this rock is these rocks are unbelievable. This is lava. This is lava, and thanks to these rocks, even thanks from these rocks, we produce great wines. That's why our wine is called Pietra-dolce, sweet rocks. So it means a positive way to use the rocks because they give drainage, they give mineral soil, they give sandy, they produce a sandy soil thanks to the wind that destroy the rocks. So this is one of the secrets of Mount Etna wines.
And you know, this people are going to now see becomes very apparent when they move on to the third wine, which is the Santo Spirito. Santo Spirito is located, as you said, much higher up, closer to 900 meters above sea level compared to Feudo di Mezzo, which is down at 650 maybe. So Santo Spirito, as people are pouring the wine at home, I'm sure you realize that it is much more lightly colored. It really is a garnet. It really is a garnet red. It is a orangey red. Again, that is a totally normal color for an Arello Mascalese wine. What would be very abnormal is if the wine were black. It just cannot be. So Santo Spirito, you see a different color, and you see the wine is much more herbal, floral, less fruity, very light on the palate, very silky, maybe the most Pinot Noir-like of all these wines. And really, it's one extreme of the three crus that Pietra-dolce has. You have Santo Spirito on one side, you have Rampante, which gives a more tannic wine at one end, and you have the Feudo di Mezzo in the middle. Now, it's very important that we stress, we didn't say this, but at Pietra-dolce, they make the wines exactly the same way. So what you get in the glass is really a pure, adulterated way of Nerello Mascalese and Nerello Cappuccio. All these wines age about 14 months in oak, depending on the vintage, but about 14. The Barbagalli is a little different, but and they're made exactly the same way. So you really get a translation of the cru's terroir in your glass. So these wines are different because the soils, the habitats, the exposures are different. Michele, tell us about Santo Spirito. Your first vintage of this wine was also fairly recent in 2016.
You know, Ian, what you say is what I love to say. We don't do any, let's say, let me say, any joke in the cellar. I mean, we don't change anything in the cellar. We wanna translate the terroir in the glass, in the bottle, and then in the glass. It means that vinification is practically the same for all the cru. We harvest between mid and end of October, sometimes beginning of November. Soft pressure, fermentation, between 15 and 17 days skin contact, and then we age 90% of our cru in 700-liter barrel that we use and reuse several times. So we don't want it to mix too much oak in our wines. The oak has to help the wine to grow up, not to change the wine. That's my philosophy. And so this is happening for Santo Spirito, Rampante, Feudo di Mezzo, Archineria, ETNA Rosso. and Barbagalli, and all of them are vinified in concrete, in cement, in the 4,000 liter tulip concrete tank. And the same for Barbagalli, but we aged Barbagalli for 20 months in the same 700 liter barrel. So nothing changed in the cellar, but what changed is the vineyards. That's what I like to transfer to the people, that we wanna really translate a terroir in the bottle and then in the glass. This is what we love to do. We wanna make sure the people understand how different can be a terroir on Mount Etna compared to another terroir in the same area, in the same kilometer, perhaps, in the same contrada, in the same cru, but different lava flows, different minerality of the soil, different wines. Regarding Santo Spirito, I quickly tell you an history. When we found this vineyard, it was completely abandoned, nothing on it, just weeds, wild weeds. All in a sudden, when we started cleaning the plot, we discovered that under the weeds there were some very old Prephyloxera vines, about 100 years old. So we said, "Wow, what is this?" We had the Prephyloxera vines under the wild weeds, and we decided it was the plot is of about 4 hectares, but 1 hectare was with Prephyloxera vines. So we decided to produce our first vintage of Santo Spirito Etna Rosso in 2016 using this hectare of Prephyloxera wines. For sure, it was a challenge because we thought it was they were dead or it was nothing. But all in a sudden, after we pruned them, they started growing again, new sprouts. And in October, we harvest the first vintage of Santo Spirito Etna Rosso. It was like make alive again something that was completely gone. So it was unbelievable.
Yeah, no, and it's you're just very lucky to be able to farm vines in Santo Spirito as well as Feudo di Mezzo and Rampante. I trust that everybody at home has had a chance to taste both the Feudo di Mezzo and the Santo Spirito, because it really ought to be obvious how different the two wines are. They are remarkably different, beginning with the color, but also the aromas and the flavors. They're very typical of the Nerello Mascalese variety, which has been studied from a biochemical point of view. It's a great variety that expresses molecules such as terpenes, geraniol, nerol, so the floral side of things, the musky note, also eugenol, which will remind you of cloves, and guaiacol, which will remind you of smoke and licorice. And so all these findings, especially in the Santo Spirito, are just very, very typical of the grape variety. And they are really wines that speak of the grape and they speak of the place they come from. And then we go to wine number 4, which is Rampante. Rampante is another cru that I can recognize blind almost every time. And this is mostly because of its tannic framework. Rampante has tannins that are assertive, but because it is a great cru, very fine. So this is a wine that is bigger bodied than the Santo Spirito, has more powerful structure. It is another beautiful vineyard that very high altitude, very steep, usually harvested a little later, up to 900 meters. There's actually a Rampante di Sopra or Soprana and a Rampante Sottana, if you really want to be specific. So a Rampante du Haut and a Rampante du Bas, if you want to talk Burgundy. But it really is one of the 5 greatest crus of Etna. Tell us a little bit about it, Michele.
Yeah. And Rampante, as you say, is more muscle is more power compared to Santo Spirito. Santo Spirito is standing in a more flat situation, more windy, so more freshness, and you recognize this freshness in the glass. More, I don't want to say more elegance, because all of them are very elegant, but less powerful. Rampante, it's, you know, the same name say it, is more strongness, more activity in terms of character, and it's really a close, because it's close, so less windy than Santo Spirito. Is very close between two big lines of olive trees, of very old olive trees, and it's the typical shape of ETNA vineyards, like an amphitheater, you know. So I would say the Rampante compared to Santo Spirito, you know, is a kid making more movement. The other one is a quiet kid, you know. It's that's the just for making understand the difference of character between the two wines. But both of them with elegance, both of them with the unbelievable minerality and the acidity of typical of Nerello Mascalese.
And Michele, how high up are your vineyards in Rampante?
It's about 800 meters above sea level. 800.
Yeah. So you see, that's an important thing, because again, it comes back to the importance of terroir. In Italy, we don't have a classification of crus relative to quality. So you have to do a little bit of homework to learn more about the crus and what they can express. It's not even that one is better than the other. They express different things. However, there are some realities that it's only fair to recognize. And Michele and the Piteradolce winery have vineyards in what really is the best part of Rampante. Rampante is a grand cru from all points of view. Like I said, it really is one of the 5 best crus of Etna. But in fact, there's a higher and a lower portion, and the slightly lower portion can undergo water stress in droughty years, which the higher portion does not. So again, there is a method to the madness of terroir, and these vines here are located in the very best part. And of course, then we have Barbagalli, which is another different world too. So the Rampante vineyard, powerful wines, tannic wines. The tannins are really recognizable when you taste blind. You really can't mistake a wine from Santo Spirito, a wine from Feudo di Mezzo, and a wine from Rampante. You only need to drink and to taste a little bit, and with that experience, you will be able to tell them apart. Just like you can take a good educated guess when you're drinking Burgundies, which might be from Chambol-Musigny, and which might be from Moret-Saint-Denis, and which might be from Pommard. Then we all routinely get it wrong, because blind tasting is horribly difficult, but you can really apply some logic, and most of the time, you'll be wrong, no, but most of the time you can actually guess right. And Rampante is a beautiful wine. This is a beautiful wine. I love it. The tannins are really beautiful, and this is a wine where the minerality shows a bit more than in Feudo di Mezzo, and really, really very pretty. And of course, then we come back to the most important wine. You hate to say that about your children, they're all your children, but the Barbagalli is really a very, very unique plot of vines. Tell us a little bit about Barbagalli.
Barbagalli is our, let's say, our diamond. Let's say it's a unique vineyard. Believe me, it's a vineyard at about 900 meters above sea level. We are really at the limit of the DOC classification, because, as you know, in that area at 1,000 meters, you cannot produce no more DOC wine. So we are really at limit. And if you look around the picture, there is a lot of lava flows. So big part of the area is not you cannot cultivate. So we are really at limit. Imagine that minimum twice per year, we cannot go on to Barbagalli because there is snow. When it's snowing over there, you cannot drive to Barbagalli. And Barbagalli is different compared to the other cru that we own. It's a special microclimate. It's giving you, for sure, it's again Prephyloxera vines, but it's a special microclimate. It's a typical ETNA vineyards, giving us very small bench and very small fruits, very deep skin, very elegant velvet tannin. Imagine that these vineyards, the vines of these vineyards give us something like half a kilo, 1 kilo per plant, which is nothing. So if you look at the business, you should say, okay, we get out everything, we do a new plantation. But we will never do it, because this is our small diamond. This is something unique in terms of elegance, in terms of quality. Even, and we don't care if this vineyard is giving us small quantity. It's a couple of thousand bottles per year. It's nothing that we sell by allocation to the importers all around the world. So it's unique, but we love it and we are happy about it. It's elegance. Yeah, it's power, but it's all about elegance. And you know, you feel it in your glass when you taste it.
No, absolutely. It's the quality of the tannins that sticks out. You
Yeah.
know, it's just a different level of depth. Also, because the vines are so old, there is a depth and a multifaceted quality to the wine, which actually is very apparent in what is honestly a more difficult vintage, because this is a 2018 compared to the 2019s, and 18 was characterized by very intermittent weather. It rained, it was nice, it rained, it was nice. In August, about 250 millimeters of rain fell, which is huge for the area. But still, the greatness of the cru, and that is the definition of a Grand Cru, is that it is able to give a great quality wine that is recognizable year after year after year, independently of the vintage. And here we have that with Barbagalli. In a lesser vintage, the wine is splendid, and that's really why it's a Grand Cru. And Barbagalli, by the way, is the name of the previous owner, or one of the ancient owners. Is that right?
Yeah, you are totally right. You know, this area.
You told me. I remember. I asked you years ago. I only know because you told me many years ago.
You're totally right. You know, because you know this is a clue that we own again inside the big cru of Rampante. But there is a story. You know, all this area was owned in the past by a family called the Barbagallo, a very rich family. And then, as it happens in the big families, all the land was split to the sons and the sons of the sons. So you know, and it was divided in many small plots. But traditionally, the Solicata's people, the people of Solicata, they call it Barbagalli, plural, because it was owned by many people of the family Barbagallo. And it's a recognized name of the area. That's why we use this name for this clos, which is inside the Barbagalli area. It became a traditional name, and we are using as a traditional name for our Grand Cru, as you say. Yeah, Barbagalli is really our Grand Cru.
Oh, you know, I think that honestly, I think that if we ever had Grand and Premier Crus, I think Barbagalli, all of Rampante would be a Grand Cru. Barbagalli is the best part, maybe, of Rampante, but Rampante, Feudo di Mezzo, Santo Spirito are probably all Grand Crus, and they're just very different. Much like Musigny is different from Chambertin, but they're all Grand Crus, and I think that's the case with these. And you know, not all the Contrade are at the same level. Like I said, there's 142, and some really we don't know much about yet. So but these are very. One question I have for you, and that is, these wines are really mostly Nerello Mascalese, but is there one of the crus that has a bit more Nerello Cappuccio or not really?
No, we really don't use. We love Nerello Mascalese. We never planted the new plantation of Cappuccio. In the past, the people used to mix a little bit of Cappuccio in the plantation because for giving the wines more color, more color. But we don't care. We love our elegant light color of Nerello Mascalese. We continue doing plantation. If we do plantation of Nerello Mascalese, just Nerello Mascalese, we don't care. It's and up to what I know, it's not growing the plantation of Nerello Cappuccio on Mount Etna, because Nerello Mascalese is the king, and it's gonna be like this for the future for sure.
No, it's absolutely true. And for the people listening to us, I'll just make it clear, because there's a lot of frankly wrong things that are said, and I think it's important for the good of Etna that people understand. Nerello Cappuccio is a much rarer variety than Nerello Mascalese. In the past, we thought there was a lot more Nerello Cappuccio, but it was discovered that what had been thought to be Nerello Cappuccio was in reality either Sangiovese or Carignan. But, and this is important because it's important for Etna and it's important for Sicily, that does not mean that Nerello Cappuccio is Sangiovese or is Carignano. That's not true. And the writers shouldn't write that, and the people talking shouldn't say that. What that means is that vineyards of Sangiovese and Carignano had been misidentified as Nerello Cappuccio. But there is Nerello Cappuccio on Etna. It's not that common. And as Michele is saying, it is a variety that gives more color and actually more fruit. The same biochemical analyses that were done on Nerello Mascalese were done on Cappuccio. And Cappuccio, for example, has much higher concentrations of benzaldehyde, which gives a note of red cherry. So there is again a method to the madness of grape varieties, and each grape variety can give you something that another does not. And in the past, when people were trying to get a bit more color, of course, then it was useful to blend Cappuccio. But now everybody understands that Mascalese is such a fantastic variety. You can just very well, and people understand that a red wine doesn't have to be black to be great. Pinot Noir certainly isn't black, and it's great. So Barolo with Nebbiolo isn't black, and it's great. And so it's the same thing with Nerello Mascalese. So that's really great. That's really fantastic. I think, Michele, I don't know if there's questions from the people listening, but we can try answering a few questions, unless there's something else you'd wanted to add.
Yes. Thank you, Ian. Thank you very much.
Please.
Yes, so we have a couple of questions for you. So the first one is actually, how many contrada are there on the Etna, and how are they delineated? And are they the equivalent to the Barolos MGA?
Yeah, by law, they're equatable to the MGAs. They're called contrade on Etna, but the idea is the same. These are vineyard districts. They're not single vineyards. As Michele was saying, these contrade are made up of many small plots, often walled like close. And so these are vineyard districts. Some of them can be very large. There's 142 now. You will read almost everywhere 133 because it was just recently increased. Most of them are around the commune of Castiglione di Sicilia. They're also around Randazzo. Randazzo has about 25 contrade. Solicchiata, Passo Pisciaro. These are the communes. And, for the goodness of Etna, we hope that with these sort of live streams we're doing today and with other conferences and other meetings, people will start to be comfortable with the communes of Etna, just like you are with the ones of Burgundy and you are with Bordeaux. People in Bordeaux, when they talk Bordeaux wine, they talk about Pauillac and Saint-Julien and Margaux. You talk about Burgundy, you talk about Gevrey-Chambertin, Vosne-Romanée, Pommard. We want people to do the same thing with Etna. You have to talk about Solicchiata, Castiglione di Sicilia. You have to talk about Randazzo, Passo Pisciaro, because each one is a commune and it's very important. Then the crus each cru has a characteristic, and we saw that today very well with the Santo Spirito, the Feudo di Mezzo, and the Rampante, which give 3 very different wines, even though Pietradolce makes them in exactly the same way. So that's the beauty of Etna right there. So the Contrade, yeah, they're like MGAs, and just like, you know, Brunate and Vignarionda, you have to start becoming comfortable with Rampante, Feudo di Mezzo, Santo Spirito, Zottorinotto, which is another one that Pietradolce has, and so on and so forth.
Okay, thank you, Ian. This is perfect. We talk about many location. The second question is if there are any vineyards on the western slope, and if not, why?
There are actually a few, but very, very few. The western slope is just not a friendly habitat for the vine. And so, you know, maybe one day when land prices really go crazy, people will start planting there too. But right now, you know, there's lots of small plots on Etna, not big plots, but there are still plots for sale, less and less. And so you can still buy on the north. It's hard, but on the southern side, it's a little easier still. And you can still find very high quality plots of vines on Etna. And really it's the north, the east, and the south where right now the vineyards are located. And that's really where you'd want to go. Michele, I don't know, do you want to add something?
No, I agree. I agree with you. You know, wine or producing wine is all about terroir. And we know that in each one region there are really high level terroir, medium level terroir, and but that doesn't matter. I mean, you can produce good wine in each place, but there is a scale. There is a scale, and if I should create, I mean, a scale, I would say northern side of Mount Etna is really the Golden Valley, as people say, but there are even other good areas, but I think even the market and the story will create a quality scale about north, south, east, and that's evident. We are still young, but step by step, all these will happen for sure. When we talk about Barolo area or Burgundy, it's a history there. We are very young, but step by step, we have to arrive to this kind of classification, clear classification.
It's very important because in Italy, since there are no quality classifications in Italy, it's very important that producers in a denomination fight to keep out poor quality areas from the denomination, because it's not like in Burgundy where you have Grand Crus and Premier Crus and Lieu Dits and Village, so anybody can figure out what the quality level is of a site. In Italy, there's no such thing. So if you allow something to become Etna Rosso and it's low quality, all you're doing is dragging down the name of Etna Rosso. Sure, you're allowing somebody to make some money, but in the long run, it's very bad for the denomination. So it's not because you want to keep people out, but you just want to defend the territory and allow it to express itself to the best of its capabilities. So the north, the west, the east, and the south are really where the Etna wines ought to be made, and that denomination should be like that, I think.
Okay, we have time for another couple of questions. This is for Michele. Do the lava flows ever do damage to vines, or are they far enough away? How close do the contemporary lava flows come to the vine?
No, luckily, up to what I remember, we did not have damage to the vineyards caused by the lava flows. You know, we had an eruption something like 20 years ago, just up to the mount at about 2,000 meters above sea level, where there is also a small ski station. But never in the recent years. In the vineyards area, so up to what I remember. So So for sure in the past, because we have lava flows among our vineyards, for sure in the past, but not in the recent years, because most of the lava of the lava flows, they go in a big valley called the Valle del Bove. And so this is a huge place where the recent eruption are gone. So we are like and safe regarding this.
Another thing that's a great question, by the way. I don't know who asked it, but another thing that is very interesting because it helps understand the ETNA. It helps people understand the ETNA wines. The ETNA is a very special kind of volcano, and if there's such a thing as a friendly volcano, ETNA is a friendly volcano. And by that I mean that you can classify volcanoes in three types: explosive, effusive, and mixed. The mixed volcanoes are like the Mauna Kea and Mauna Loa of Hawaii. The explosive ones are like Vesuvius and Stromboli. And then there is the effusive, eruptive, which is Etna. What that means is the effusive and eruptive volcanoes have lava flows that flow literally gently. And first of all, it gives people a chance to run away, but also the flow follows a certain direction, and therefore it often spares vineyards because at some point the lava stops. It's the explosive volcanoes that cause all sorts of damage. First of all, because they explode lapilli and rocks, even at a very big distance, very much like shrapnel. And people die, Unfortunately, Stromboli, there was a death just a few years ago because the rocks were thrown, blasted into the atmosphere, and the poor guy got hit on the head. So you have no chance. Also, those volcanoes release gases into the atmosphere. You know, Vesuvius, those poor people in Pompeii were all pretty well dead before the lava ever got to them because the gases, the toxic gases that killed them. So Etna is an effusive or diffusive type of volcano. The lava flows, it creates the shade, and usually the vineyards are spared, and that's great.
Yeah, you know what? Believe me or not, we are never scared about Mount Etna. It's a gentle volcano. Yeah, people living around Mount Etna are never scared of Mount Etna because it's effusive. Because if there is an eruption, you know there is an eruption. All these lava flows that go in a big valley. So yep. we really feel safe. Okay, we really feel safe, and we look at Mount Etna as a big mother. Mother Etna, you know, and giving us positive things, because imagine that we have all the water coming down here in our wells after the snow, after the winter snow. We have protection by the main winds. We have a volcanic fertile soil. So what more? it's really something that positive for us.
Great.
Okay, thank you. We have time for the last two questions for all the people that we receive many questions from you, and thank you very much, by the way. We are trying to reply to everyone as soon as possible. Michele, when you say Prephyloxera vineyards, can you clarify? They are ungrafted, right? Are any plantings being done this way?
They are, yes, they are ungrafted. They are not grafted on a rootstock. Now is not allowed to do plantation with the ungrafted vines, but in the past was allowed. And thanks God they were not touched by the phylloxera, probably thanks to the volcanic sandy soil that we have at that altitude. So ungrafted, very old, and so not touched by this bad insect, which is Prephyloxera. So it's something really unique, and you don't find so many Prephyloxera vineyards. on Mount Etna. It's when we find and we own tanks, and we are lucky to own some of them. We really protect them. We keep them as we found them. We protect as very old monuments, as we were saying before.
Yeah, for people who maybe don't know who are listening, I think most people do know, but the sandy soil does not allow the phylloxera to survive because the phylloxera creates tunnels. But with the sandy soil, the tunnel collapses and therefore asphyxiates the louse. So that's why on volcanic soils, it just can't survive.
Okay, last question is about Barbagalli. Is it hard to get Barbagalli ripe because of the altitude?
Bella domanda.
You mean if it's hard to get Barbagalli? Yes, it's harder than the other wines. We try to harvest later than the other wines, let's say end of October, beginning of November. Sometimes this can change depending on the weather conditions, and it's a challenge. Barbagalli is a challenge. It's difficult. It's more difficult than other wines to be produced. But it's a great challenge for us, and in the great vintage we really obtain a great wine. But you know, when something is easy, it's not a challenge. It's not as when it's difficult, like it's difficult producing Barbagalli. We are. It makes us happy to do it, and especially in the great vintages. Yes.
I think that to add to that, that's an important point. It's a very good question, and it's an important point. The altitude of Barbagalli is important because in the good vintages, clearly in poor vintages, Barbagalli is at a disadvantage with that altitude. But in the good to great vintages, that altitude allows for a very long hang time and a very slow maturation of the grapes. And that really builds complexity. And that is one of the secrets of Barbagalli and why the wine is going to be really top class, because the grapes are going to give you, also because of the vine age, they're going to give you a remarkably deep, multifaceted, complex wine. And to give you further proof, it isn't by accident that another one of the 5 greatest crus of Etna, which is one that Piteradolce doesn't have, is Guardiola. Guardiola is another one that's really high up. So like Barbagalli, these very high altitude vineyards, sure, they're difficult because in cold years, there's a bit of a problem, but because they're Grand Crus, already in an average year, and of course in the great years, they give you the best possible wines because the wines are deep and complex and truly unique. So it's like Michele says, easy things are easy, but they're not always the best, you know. And it's the same thing with with people. The more difficult people, provided they're not exaggeratedly difficult, are usually more interesting.
All right, thank you very much, Ian. Thank you very much, Michele. It was an amazing hour, an amazing webinar, and thank you very much.
It was a pleasure.
Very much. Thank you to Piteradolce, and congratulations for the wines. I don't know which one to pick. Maybe the Feudo di Mezzo. Barbagalli is too easy, you know. So maybe I say Feudo di Mezzo, but I love Rampante too, so I can't pick.
Thanks, Ian. Hoping to see you soon on Mount Etna.
in August. No, I can tell you right away. I'm coming back in August, and I've already planned. I'll be there a week.
Sounds good. Sounds good.
I'm coming with my glass. I'm ready.
and look, you will see the great volcanic terroir.
Thank you. Great.
You're welcome.
Goodbye, everyone, and thank you for joining us. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.